Salve, salve, galerinha da aviação e astronomia em todo o mundo, gente. Estamos aqui hoje para acompanhar o lançamento do foguete Lançamento 5B, gente. Tá dando hold no local. Mas vamos seguindo, gente. Hold no foguete Lançamento em 3, 2, 1. Hold. Cadê? Estamos tendo hold no local, gente. Então, estamos tendo hold no local, gente. Cadê, gente? O medo aí foi. Cadê, gente? Hoje é live dupla, gente, pois uma live com o lançamento do Lançamento, que é essa live, e outra que é o Falcon 9. Então não sei se... eu acho que deu hold, gente. Estamos só esperando aí, gente. Pelo canal Space Dodge dele. Aí, gente. Ixi, o fogo, gente. O fogo do lançamento. Vai, foguete Lançamento 5B, levando a missão Satnet Léo Grupo, Satnet Léo Grupo, TDB, gente. Olha o fogo. Olá, gente. Vai, foguete Lançamento. Eu pensei que não ia dar tempo para a gente ter o lançamento. Pensei que a gente não ia conseguir, gente, transmitir a live, mas por sinal conseguimos transmitir a live. Conseguimos começar a live a tempo, gente. E também depois vamos ter o lançamento do foguete Falcon 9. É por isso que eu falei que ele ia ter, gente, 2 lançamentos. O lançamento live dupla, que é o lançamento desse foguete Lançamento e o lançamento do foguete. Estamos aqui acompanhando. Gente. Olá, gente, o foguete indo. Tenho que ver, gente. Como que eu vou fazer? Como que eu vou atualizar a descrição da live? Eu pensei que iria ser... Não precisa. Eu já tinha atualizado os três. Olá, gente, as imagens, as câmeras, Simulação, gente, olha lá. Não live. Simulação, gente. Até colocou aí que é simulação. Vaga, gente. Imagem do canal Tati Space Dodge Glory. Tinha dado um hold. Aí depois tinha dado hold. Olha lá, gente. Abriu a coifa. Sim, é isso mesmo. Deu hold. Deu um holdzinho pequeno. Tava programado para o lançamento para 17h05 e foi adiado para 5 minutos, que é 17h10. Foi lançado agora. Esse foguete, o Long March. Foi lançado, estamos sem imagens do foguete. Estamos sem as imagens. Infelizmente, estamos sem as imagens do foguete. Live do canal International Space Flight foi. Não, no canal International Rocket Launch foi curto demais. Deixa eu ver se tem mensagem no chat. Acabou a live, agora
Attempted to
vamos
launch this
assistir o
Atlas
lançamento
V
do
rocket,
Falcon
but got
9.
stymied by the weather,
Vamos à
and
live do
because the
Long
range
March.
was busy for
Vamos
a
acompanhar
decent
agora
spell, they
o
had to
lançamento do
stand down
Falcon
from this
9.
launch opportunity. But now, as you can see, back at the pad, back in
Faltando
action. In
25
fact, I posted some
minutos e
photos
20
earlier from our time
segundos para o
at the launch pad.
lançamento do foguete
Check that out on our
Falcon
website,
9,
spaceflightnow.com, as well as on our social channel X. That launch looking again for a liftoff at 7 p.m. Eastern, 2300 UTC. Finally up on deck, we have a Falcon 9 rocket currently in the horizontal position. We're keeping our eyes posted on Launch Complex 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center as a brand new Falcon booster preparing to launch the Starlink 12-10 mission. Looking for a liftoff at 10:31 p.m. Eastern, 02:31 UTC for our friends around the globe.
Mas ainda bem que conseguimos
So
acompanhar
just
o
a
lançamento,
few
gente,
hours
do foguete
separates
Long
these
March.
three launches.
Meio
Two Falcon 9s and an
eu
Atlas
vejo
V
que
sandwiched
eu vou
in
fazer
the middle.
pós,
So
vai ficar
lots to
muito
talk about,
mais,
lots to
vai
get
ficar
to,
muito
and certainly appreciate you being with us
Muito
here at Spaceflight Now as we get things rolling on a very, very busy
Agora vai
Monday
ser o
afternoon.
corte da live do Falcon 9.
To that end, I want to thank the
Lançamento do Falcon.
little more than 1,300 of you who are watching with us live this afternoon for launch number 1. If you haven't already, you could do us a big favor just by clicking the like button, share the stream, allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage.
Deixa eu ver se tem alguém
Taking
no
a look at our
chat
live
da
chat
live.
here.
Não.
Want to thank our moderator Rick Donner for helping us out today. And if you do see any of the other mods happen to cruise on in throughout the course of the countdown here for this first mission, be sure to go ahead and give them a big space flight now hello. We're also powered by a wonderful channel member community here on YouTube. So thanks to folks like Joni Mahoney, Ian Lita, Cumulus Granatus, The Rocket Girl, CK, Sulfur for Lunch, and many others. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts on our online shop, that is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to our member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here at the Cape in 4K, of which there are 2 on the docket for the back half of this late afternoon going into the evening. Want to welcome in some new channel members who've pulled up and joined with us. Welcome aboard to Sustraw, joining with us, membership at the pad leader level. Jose Luis Giron, joining us with membership at the mission specialist level. Freedom Isn't Free, upgrading their membership to mission specialist. Really appreciate that. And Josh King marking 30 months with us as a channel member at the pad leader level. Says Go Falcon and Atlas. Yes, 2 marquee rockets, both on the pad here in Florida. One over in California, getting ready to launch over the course of the next several hours. So quite an exciting orbital flight day if all goes according to plan. We'll talk about the weather for each, especially when it comes to things here in the Sunshine State. Last little bit of housekeeping, though. If you have a comment or question about this mission or other goings-on in the realm of space and space flight, you can use the YouTube Super Chat feature, and not only will you be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we cruise on through the count, but you'll be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now, and that, my friends, as always, greatly appreciated. Our photography team has this launch off, given that this is a Vandenberg-based broadcast, but our crews are getting ready, making sure their camera batteries are charged, their lenses are clear. They've got good views ahead of the liftoff of the Atlas V and the Falcon 9 from here. Adam Bernstein is over on the Cape side. Michael Caine will be here with us at the Kennedy Space Center press site. Mr. John Pisani has this launch off. If you're not following the fellows on X, you can find them at their handles here. Adam is at ABurn NYC, Michael Caine, MD Caine Jr. John is at John Pisani Photo. And be sure to follow Spaceflight Now simply at Spaceflight Now. If you're not on that social site, you can find us as well on Threads, Facebook, and Blue Sky. Time now, T-minus 20 minutes, 20 seconds and counting to the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Vehicle going to be flying in a southeasterly trajectory, heading along the coasts of California and Mexico. At this point, we do have word that propellant load is underway, which means SpaceX is committing to that liftoff time that you see there on the slate on your screen. Because SpaceX uses what's known as a load-and-go style of fueling, given the super cold densified liquid oxygen on board, that means once the vehicle begins the tanking process, they do not have the ability to hold the countdown, unlike the Atlas V, which we'll be seeing fly a little bit later. Also, want to note that each of these launches will have their own dedicated live stream. So even though the activities of this Starlink mission will wrap up shortly before our plans start to the Kuiper 1 mission coverage, that will be in its own dedicated stream. So we'll mention that launch periodically throughout the course of this broadcast, obviously keeping most of the focus here on the Starlink mission at hand. But just be aware that following the conclusion of this broadcast, we'll pop you back out and look forward to seeing you shortly after we wrap things up on this particular stream. As we've got just a little under 19 minutes left on the clock, let's go ahead and talk about the countdown timeline for this mission. The sequence of events that we're anticipating with a good count to liftoff for this Falcon 9 rocket at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Should have views of the pad in the final 5 minutes of the count, as well as mission audio beginning at that point as well. Running through the events that have already passed so far, the T-minus 38-minute mark is when the SpaceX launch director conducted the readiness poll. The go-ahead, of course, was given, as we just mentioned, so tanking of the vehicle began at the T-minus 35-minute mark with the loading of liquid oxygen on board the Falcon 9's first stage and a rocket-grade kerosene, referred to as RP-1, on board the Falcon's first and second stages. T-minus 30 minutes is when SpaceX began loading a cryogenic helium on board the Falcon 9's first stage. Same was true in the second stage a few minutes thereafter. Helium is important because it's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. T-minus 23 minutes is when the second stage RP-1 tank is full. T-minus 20 minutes and 50 seconds, the strong back chill-down process began. That's when SpaceX started to condition the feed lines there at Space Launch Complex 4 East ahead of the loading of liquid oxygen on board the Falcon 9's second stage. That milestone set to begin in just a little more than a minute from where we are right now at T-minus 16 minutes to liftoff. Moving on through the countdown at T-minus 7 minutes is when the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines gets underway. That process involves flowing a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps in the Falcon booster, helping to protect the engines from the thermal shock and damage that they could otherwise experience during the startup sequence. T-minus 6 minutes, the first stage kerosene tank is full. T-minus 4.5 minutes is when the strong back retract sequence gets underway. Here at Vandenberg, we'll see the clamp arms that are holding the rocket open up, and the strong back, or the transporter erector as it's also known, reclines about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. It stays in that position up to and through liftoff. 3 minutes out, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same is true on the second stage, about a minute thereafter, at which point the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks will be brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds before flight. The engine ignition command is issued at T-minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold-down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, coming up at 1:42 p.m. Pacific, 4:42 p.m. Eastern, 20:42 UTC, or in just about 15.5 minutes from now. With just now about 15 minutes remaining on the clock, talking a little bit about the booster that is supporting today's mission. We've got one of SpaceX's frequent flyers from its Falcon program that is on deck today. The rocket supporting this mission not in the #1 spot, but preparing to further cement its #2 position in this list. B-1063 will be making its 25th flight so far, having most recently flown on March 26th. Rounding out the top 5 here for SpaceX, you have booster B-1071 that has flown 24 times, currently tied with B-1063 at the moment. Followed up by B-1069 with 23 missions to its name, and B-1076 with 21. As of the launch yesterday, here's where the bar chart currently stands. on Falcon flights. This mission set to be SpaceX's 49th Falcon 9 flight of the year so far. And of course, as we mentioned, we've got another Falcon sitting at the pad over at Historic Launch Complex 39A. That'll be Falcon 9 launch number 50, if all goes well with that mission, coming up a little later tonight. With 13 minutes on the clock, let's go ahead and talk about where this Falcon 9 is going to be flying once it leaves the pad. Let's talk a little trajectory, shall we? As I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, the vehicle will be flying in a southeasterly trajectory once it does leave the pad here, flying along the coast of California and Mexico. The first stage booster B-1063 following that orange arc and aiming for a touchdown on the SpaceX drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. If successful, this will be the 127th booster landing on that particular drone ship and the 438th Falcon booster landing so far to date. Of course, SpaceX interested not only in recovering the boosters and turning them around for future flights, but also the payload fairings. And for both, SpaceX wants to certify them for up to 40 missions apiece. Currently in the process of doing that. Don't often hear a lot about the payload fairings and the number of missions that they have flown, so a little bit harder to track for SpaceX's program. But they did say in a presentation at the end of 2023, they save about $6 million per fairing recovery effort. So it's still an important part of their business model to retrieve these as much as possible. It'll be brought aboard one of SpaceX's recovery vessels, then brought back in through port, inspected, certified for a future flight, and prepared for that next mission. Taking a look at the live chat with just a little more than 11 minutes remaining on the clock. I want to thank a few folks for their support for our broadcast today. I want to thank channel member I'm Lita with a $5 super chat. Good to see you, Lita, who says, good to be here with you all for another launch. Thanks Spaceflight Now team and mods for all you do. Appreciate the kind words. Also want to thank Jacqueline the Animal for saying thank you for all you do. Thank you, Jacqueline. Channel member moderator Jeff Hansen with a $10 super chat. Appreciate you, Jeff. Who says, go Vandy, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink, Godspeed Workhorse 1063. Finally, channel member Josh King with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Josh. Who asks, do you think Starship Flight 9 will fly in May or slip to June? That is a good question, the answer to which I don't have a definitive one. I wish I did. No, they're doing some testing on the ship upper stages for, I believe, for both flights 9 and for flight 10. So certainly there remains the possibility that flight 9 for the Starship program could happen in May, but I would not be overly shocked if it did in fact slip to June. Of course, as of now, they are still bound by the mishap investigation that has not been closed out from the Flight 8 mission. The Flight 7 mishap investigation has been wrapped up. And of course, SpaceX could still get a public safety determination to proceed with Flight 9 if that is the ultimate call made by the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration, or the FAA. We'll have to see how SpaceX wants to play it this go around. Coming back to this mission with 9 minutes on the clock, we're just about 2 minutes away from the point where SpaceX will be chilling the 9 Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage booster. Let's go ahead and talk about what's on board this particular Falcon 9 rocket. You got 27 Starlink V2 mini satellites, believed to be the optimized version of these Starlinks, which you can see an image of them in their launch configuration from a previous flight, which we believe we're also flying these optimized versions of Starlinks. This will be SpaceX's 32nd Starlink mission of the year so far. One of the key differences between the optimized version of Starlink and their predecessor V2 mini satellites is their weight, which is part of why SpaceX is able to fit more of these on a Falcon launch, whether it be from California or from Florida. SpaceX has said that they can launch up to 29 of these optimized Starlink satellites on one go. So far, the most we've seen is a 28 batch mission from here in Florida. As you can see on the slide, 27 are on board from Vandenberg. These optimized Starlink satellites clock in at about 1,267 pounds, or about 575 kilograms. Their predecessors are just a little more than 1,700 pounds, or about 800 kilograms. With their solar panels unfurled, though, they have a wingspan of about 100 feet or 30 meters. They use argon hull thrusters for in-orbit maneuvering. They were built in Redmond, Washington, which is near Seattle. They'll be deployed at about 180 miles or 289 kilometers in altitude at a 53-degree inclination. To give you an idea of what these Starlinks look like when they're on orbit, this is an image from a SpaceX progress report published at the end of 2024, illustrating the laser mesh connection between the Starlink satellites. A couple of renderings of the direct-to-cell versions were released by some of SpaceX's telecom partners. This one from T-Mobile here in the United States as a part of their commercial that aired during the Super Bowl earlier this year. And then this one from Japan-based telecom company AU. And then, of course, you've got the real deal here that was imaged by Black Sky and HEO. This on-orbit image of a Starlink satellite captured prior to the optimized version of Starlink being announced as rolling into the mix. Just under 6 minutes here before the planned launch of this Falcon 9 rocket. At this point, the first stage RP-1 tank should be full. Should be getting some views of the Falcon 9 rocket here coming up in just about 30 seconds. And speaking of things that are afoot, do have word from ULA CEO and President Tory Bruno that they're taking the poll for the start of cryogenic loading on the Atlas V rocket, supporting, of course, the Kuiper 1 mission. Currently in the first of two planned 15-minute holds for the Atlas V rocket launch. The first at T-minus 2 hours, or L-minus 2 hours and 30 minutes. This hold ensures that things are good to go before they get ready to tank the vehicle. And as you can see, we've got some really nice views of the Falcon 9 rocket here at Vandenberg Space Force Base.
Strong back retract has started.
Good call for the start of strong back retract. Shortly, we'll see the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings open up, and that large structure just to the right of the rocket in this vantage point will recline away from the vehicle about 13 degrees or so. Got a nice up-close view of the strong back there. You can see the clamp arms have opened, or actually it looks like they're just about finished opening. And there, the strong back now in motion. And it looks like quite a bit of life on those payload fairings, so definitely flown a time or two by the look of it. Some gorgeous views from Vandenberg and in the area. Should have a pretty nice vantage point for those who are in the central to southern California area. If you do happen to catch a glimpse of this Falcon 9 as it takes flight, be sure to tag us on social media. We'd love to see what you're able to capture from this mission. Back here in Florida with the Atlas launch, the chill down of the liquid oxygen system for the Atlas booster is underway.
Stage 1 lock load is complete.
Pressurization ahead of chill down for the locks for the Centaur upper stage also proceeding as well. ULA says they're not working any issues ahead of the start of their tanking process. That coming as SpaceX is about to conclude their fueling just past the 3-minute mark now, just about 2:30 left on the clock. As you heard, first stage lock load is complete. We're awaiting a similar call here on the second stage. ULA President CEO Tori Bruno says all go for cryo. So tanking of the Atlas V will be getting underway shortly. Now less than 2 minutes on this Falcon 9. The planned 15...
Stage 2 lock load is complete.
Good call on the conclusion of LOX load. The Falcon 9 here now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. Should be seeing the additional venting for the ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeouts.
Good call, good visuals as SpaceX is clearing the liquid oxygen from the feed lines there. That additional vapor obscuring the Falcon 9 for just a moment here from this camera's perspective. About 4 minutes remaining in the planned hold on the Atlas rocket, as we're now just a hair over a minute away from the liftoff of this Falcon 9 from California.
Falcon 9 isn't started up.
And with that call, we are just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to give their final go for launch. Should be coming in the next 5 seconds.
Launch director, go for launch.
And with that go for launch, we're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary, listen to the final 30 seconds of the count, and we'll be back with you for additional words on the other side of liftoff.
T minus 30 seconds. T minus 15 seconds. T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Falcon 9 is supersonic. Max Q.
And as the vehicle passes through Max Q, a gorgeous liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket to begin the Starlink 11-9 mission. 27 Starlink V2 mini satellites on board, approaching a minute 30 into flight, and the start of the MVAC chill down.
MVAC chill.
That second stage engine being thermally conditioned ahead of the start of its first burn. We're coming up on a series of events in fairly rapid succession here. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff at about T plus 2 minutes and 25 seconds. That'll be followed by stage separation a few seconds afterwards. And then second stage engine start with the fairings separating just after the 3-minute mark. A little more than 2 minutes into flight. And a really nice view of the curvature of the Earth on the left-hand side of the screen. Beautiful view of the California coastline.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
All good calls, very good views on this Falcon 9 rocket. You can see the hypersonic grid fins now extending on the booster stage. Coming up on fairing separation here in the next few seconds.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And with that, the Starlink satellites, all 27 of them, exposed to the vacuum of space for the first time on this mission. You can see those fairing halves falling away. Once again, they'll splash down into the waters of the Pacific Ocean under the support of steerable parachutes and will be recovered by SpaceX for future flights. A little more than 3.5 minutes so far to this mission. Occasionally you'll see little puffs like that one right there in between the grid fins on the Falcon booster. Those are the cold gas thrusters, what SpaceX uses to adjust the attitude or the position of the booster as it begins to orient itself for a planned landing on the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You, stationed out in the Pacific Ocean. Now 4 minutes into flight. As we're continuing to watch this Falcon 9 rocket and its 2 stages. Back here in Florida, the countdown clock has picked up for the Atlas rocket, coming out of the planned 15-minute hold. Now just about T-minus 1 hour, 58 minutes and counting. There will be one more planned 15-minute hold once the clock hits T-minus 4 minutes. Some really nice views of both the rocket's upper and lower stages as well as the Earth on this Falcon mission so far. Good view up through the inner stage there on the left-hand side of your screen. In a little less than a minute now at this point, the first stage entry burn will begin. SpaceX will use 3 of the Merlin engines at the base of the Falcon 9 first stage. That'll begin to slow the vehicle down quite dramatically. coming up on the start of the entry burn.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Good call there. This entry burn will last less than 30 seconds.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
With the conclusion of that entry burn, we're now looking towards the start of the landing burn next. Coming up in less than a minute. Just one engine on the Falcon booster will be used to cushion the landing on the drone ship. Now 7 minutes into flight. As the booster is approaching its targeted landing, we'll also be hearing a call that the Falcon 9 second stage is in terminal guidance. What that means is the second stage is
Stage 1 transonic.
first burn is coming to a close.
Stage 2 FPS is saved.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Landing confirmed.
And for a 25th time, B-1063 is made it to space and back.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And with that call for a nominal orbit insertion, upper stage is now entered into that parking orbit where it will continue to cruise until the back end of the hour in flight that it's currently in. There will be one more burn of the upper stage engine at about T plus 54 minutes and 2 seconds. That'll be a brief 2-second burn, helping to circularize the orbit, and then the Starlink satellites will be deployed at about T plus 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 11 seconds. And normally we would take a little more time to ease on out of the broadcast, but as we mentioned at the top, it is a very busy afternoon, and we're about to pivot and turn over to the launch of this Atlas V rocket that is standing tall at Space Launch Complex 41. So, gonna briefly thank a few more folks for their support before we go ahead and wrap things up here on the Starlink stream. Our thanks to Gunner S for a $20 super chat. Really appreciate that support at that level, Gunner. As well as to Glenn Rubel with also a very generous $20 super chat. Generously saying for gas money. Daniel H gifting 3 Spaceflight Now memberships. Appreciate you, Daniel. And the Art of the Real with a $10 super chat saying great views of the launch, the Earth, the rocket as it ascends, and the data. And let's go ahead before we close things out. Let's take a quick speed run through the mission stats as they currently stand. This was the 25th flight of Falcon 9 booster 1063, the 466th Falcon 9 launch to date. This was the 48th Falcon 9 launch of 2025, the 141st orbital launch within the last 365 days, the 122nd orbital launch from SpaceX from Space Launch Complex 4 East, and the 190th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Taking a look at the bar chart here, launch 49 added now, looking for launch number 50 later on tonight. Moving on to some recovery stats. This was the 127th booster landing on the drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You, the 349th SpaceX drone ship landing, and the 438th booster landing overall for SpaceX. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 17th orbital flight from California, the 51st from U.S. soil, the 56th from a U.S. rocket company, the 85th orbital launch around the world. So far, one mishap on the year. And here, my friends, is where the pie chart currently stands. And we'll leave you with views of our next launch set to lift off, if all continues to go well, in just over 2 hours from now. And we will see you very shortly on that dedicated live stream over there. So I want to thank folks for joining us here. Thanks to Jeff Hansen for holding it down as our moderator for this stream. Appreciate all of our channel member community for being here. Thanks to our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, for running the technical operations of the broadcast. I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember,